Hi, Ali. I apologize for the delay in getting this to you. I was having some technical difficulties with my computer, but they are resolved. So let's get to your new set, okay? You have a problem with your computer, so let's see what you wrote. Dear Sir, Madam, I am extremely disappointed with the recent purchase I made from your shop. I bought HP F321 laptop on 22nd of October 2020, and the receipt number for this is this. Although the laptop is running perfectly, all right, now careful here. You can't have although and but in the same sentence. You can only use one of these. And although doesn't take a comma directly after it, it takes it at the end of the clause. So that's another thing to remember. All right, let's try it again. Although the laptop is running perfectly, comma, there is a serious issue with the color resolution. When I first started using it, I noticed a few lines on the screen. Because it was a new laptop, I thought there must be something wrong with the setting, but later it got worse. Careful. Can't start sentences with because. You could have said as or since, but you don't start sentences with because. And then worst should be worse with an E, not a T. I can hardly see the screen clearly. As I live 2 hours away from your shop, I made a phone complaint on the 24th of October at around 1 o'clock. Your staff member told me that they will send a technician on the 26th of October, but no one showed up. It has been a month now, and I have tried calling your shop several times, but no one answered. The complaint, with a T, number allocated to me was this. I want you to take immediate action on this and investigate why there has been a delay without an ED. You need a noun here, not a verb. I am traveling to Japan on the 15th of November, therefore, I want this to be fixed, should be an ED, before that, as I would not be coming back before next year. Okay, I would really appreciate if you can prompt this. Kind regards. Alrighty, so this started out really, really strong. I really liked it. I thought everything was wonderful. However, now I want to make a couple of changes, okay? Basically, the problems begin up here. I want is considered informal. So it's not appropriate here. It must be more formal, something like I would like, or just say, please take immediate action, or I would request that you take immediate action, or I would like you to take immediate action. All right, so all of these instances of I want need to be replaced. That's one thing. Then, this is not appropriate here. Prompt is not a verb, okay? Well, not here at least. It's not the right way to say this. So I would kindly appreciate if you could expedite this. That would have been a nice way to say this. All right. But again, not can, could. More formal. Now, since you started your letter, dear Sir, Madam, you don't know the name of the person. It should finish with yours faithfully. All right, so those are the changes I would make there. I thought the rest of this was really quite nice. No real issues, just some little things that I corrected throughout. Okay, so well done there. Let's take a look now at your task 2, which is the quality of people's lives, art, and its effect on people's quality of life. Now, I saw something in your email. I didn't read the whole thing very carefully, but you did ask me if it was okay to talk about both sides. Now, look at the question. It says, do you agree or disagree? So essentially, when it gives you just these two options, do you agree or disagree, you do have to take a side. Okay, there are some where it says to what extent do you agree or disagree, and they're basically giving you the option of having a more kind of nuanced opinion. Here they're not really giving that to you. Okay, unless maybe you just didn't write the question the way it was. I don't know if that's possible. Like I said, if it says to what extent do you agree or disagree, then yes, you may write a more nuanced position saying that, well, while I agree with this, I also believe this. But when it just gives you a straight do you agree or not agree, then you really should stay with just one side. Okay, so just to kind of recapitulate, I have to look at the questions, how it was phrased in the actual prompt. If this is how it was phrased and you didn't like change anything around, then you should have essentially stuck to one side here, either agree or disagree. If it said to what extent you agree or disagree, then you could have kind of been somewhere in the middle. You could have been like 70-30 or 60-40, or, I think you get the point. Okay, let's see what you wrote though. Experts throughout both the developing and developed world have debated whether, not that, get rid of that, have debated whether countries should largely invest in museums and paintings or not. Some believe they should. Personally, I disagree. This essay will discuss why governments should utilize this money on other areas such as education and health, using examples from Oxford University, get rid of the, capitalize U, to demonstrate points and prove arguments. All right, fine. I want to clean this up here. I didn't really care for this. Some believe they should, comma, personally I disagree. This is a little awkward. You have two contrasting statements here. It's really better to use a clearer, cohesive device like a however, yet, but even would have been fine. So even although. So some believe they should, although personally I disagree. Okay? Because there's such contrast here, I don't think the comma does enough. Let's see. Let's move on. On the one hand, there is ample evidence that although art is a field that creates living, oh, you don't mean creates living, you mean it provides basically a living. It provides like a wage. I think this is what you mean, right? Let's see. On the one hand, there is ample evidence that although art is a field that, how about creates jobs for a small... Why did you have although here? You don't need although, because you can use although when you have two sides of a sentence, but you don't have two sides here. It's just really one central idea. So let's try that. On the one hand, there is ample evidence that art is a field that creates jobs for a small percentage of people. Not because of this, because as I already said, you shouldn't start sentences with because. So how about this? As a result, the countries, apostrophe S authorities should keep this in mind. The central reason behind this is twofold. Firstly, it creates a career for people who are gifted with this talent and skill. Secondly, it provides a living for them as it increases employment when government uses money in this area. For instance, according to Oxford University, capitalize your U, 35% of the population in Spain work in museums and other art galleries. Thus, it is conclusively clear that a country should keep this sector in mind and help people who are connected with it by spending a decent budget. Okay, so you're basically telling us why the government should support the arts, right? Because it creates jobs. But that's not what they're asking you here. They're talking about art which creates quality in people's lives. So we're not talking about whether the government should support the arts because it provides jobs, but quality in people's lives. I didn't really feel like you talked about that at all. I mean, you could potentially say that, well, if people have jobs and they have money, then they, potentially have quality. But that's really, really stretching this. I mean, you didn't really say any of that. This is just my kind of conclusion. But you needed to talk about this because this is the aspect of spending on money on art that the essay is asking you to talk about. Okay, let's take a look here. On the other hand, there are other important areas such as education and health where a country should focus more and get rid of relatively, and spend more funds in these departments. It will absolutely make no sense for developing countries such as India and Pakistan to throw their funds into art, which is not needed at all. In fact, they should use this money in making the health and education system better. You already said that before. This feels a little repetitive. As of poverty, what does that mean? As a result of poverty? I'm not really sure. There are many countries in this world, no comma, where people are unable to go for treatments, eat healthy, and send their children to schools. Therefore, priority should be given to basic needs. No such here, rather than spending money in art and painting. Okay. The language is nice. It's very strong, and so I liked that. When you have strong language like this, it makes it really convincing and persuasive. But there were some mistakes there, and there was some incoherence. I had a little trouble understanding, okay? Let's move on, and then we'll talk about it a little more in detail. In conclusion, after having discussed the most pertinent points of this argument, I firmly believe that more funds, get rid of the comma, oh, there's no comma there, forgive me, should be spent with a T on areas such as health and education as they are more necessary instead of arts. They are more necessary than the arts. Okay. Here's my thing. You missed part of this. All right, I already talked about it here. You missed this whole thing about quality in people's lives. So, when we talk about quality in people's lives, I wanted you to refer to this a little bit, okay? So assuming that people have their basic needs covered, assuming again, okay? This is what you kind of needed to address. Like, what is this providing people? Like, if you are in favor of the arts, what is this providing people when they have art in their life? What is it giving them? Okay? What kind of quality? What kind of, culture? And think about art. I mean, art, are we talking just about sculpture? Are we talking just about paintings? Are we talking about music? Are we talking about dance? Are we talking about theater? These are also forms of art, right? So think about this. If the government helps provide these things, how is this helping the common citizen? Okay? Rather than just focusing on giving people jobs. All right, stay away from that for a minute. Now, this paragraph I liked, okay, as I already told you. And I also like that you said, where was it? You mentioned the arts here. You said art which is not needed at all. Maybe you could have explored that a little bit. Like, why isn't art needed at all? Maybe you could have said, art really is a luxury when you look at the fact that some people do not have basic needs cared for. All right, so it seems rather frivolous. It seems rather like a waste of money. So you could have developed that. You could have extended this a little more to tell us why you think art is not needed at all. All right, because here you just spent time telling us how it's important. So here you should have explored this a little bit. And then you mentioned again here that it's better to spend money on basic needs. Okay, so now let's go back to the most important thing, though, where it says here, do you agree or disagree? If this was the way it was written to you on test day, then you really do have to stick to just one view, okay? And assuming that this is what you believe, because I think this is what you said, you could have talked about here, you could have talked about how governments really must spend money on healthcare, explain why, explain the problem with healthcare, and how this is much more important than spending money on museums, on spending money on buying paintings or creating sculptures. And then here you could have spent a paragraph talking about how governments really must spend money on education, okay? As this is the only way that a country's economy will develop. And, this then will allow for one day the country to have people, who can potentially be patrons of the arts, okay? And purchase art and create art and so forth. But really you have to make sure that a country's basic needs are cared for and tended to. And then you can worry about things like that. So that's kind of how you could have done this, okay? Good stuff happening in general, but some things I wanted you to change. I hope that answered the questions in your email. You asked me if there were any other question types as well. There are two question types. There are two question essays where literally there's two questions being asked, and so you have to address each question. Typically we do this each question in one paragraph, okay? All right, so go ahead. Oh, by the way, you also said something about problem and solution essays. It's not just problems and solutions. It's also like causes and solutions, or causes and the problems. So those are also, those fall into those two question essays. But the other thing I want to tell you that it's not, when you do have a problem and solution essay, you don't always have to have problems in one paragraph and then solutions in the other paragraph. What you could also do is have problem and solution in one paragraph, and then the second problem and the second solution in the second paragraph. That's another way to do it, okay? Although that does have some issues with it, which we can talk about at another time. Go ahead and correct these, and I believe we have more essays coming from you, so let's see them, okay? Good luck.